and welcome to another episode of Jibber Jabber, the vocal part of the networking magazine, with me, your host, Sanj Saigal. In today's edition, we catch up with the award-winning photographer, Carly Zavala, who's built a brand and a legacy, creating a unique interplay of light and shade that has drawn the attention of celebrities and media. Her signature style of somehow telling a story through an image while conveying a stunning capture of emotional content is truly unique. Taking advantage of the tonal spectrum, Carly flirts with hue, saturation, exposure and contrast, creating captivating effects. Hi Carly, great to have you on the show.
Hi, thank you so much. And wow, what an introduction.
It's great to have you here. Look, I guess I wanted to take you back to 2013, where I think your story begins. You were an ER nurse, a profession that lasted for over or just under 13 years, a career that offered stability and a clear path. So that we can get a feel of what you did, where you worked, could you highlight some of the things you had to do in that role?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, I was a nurse for around 13 years. Mm-hmm. And the majority of my nursing career was in emergency room. So right. I used to live upstate New York in Ithaca. Mm-hmm. And I worked in a hospital a little outside of Ithaca, a town called Cortland. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started my nursing career. I was around 21 when I started doing that. So basically I graduated high school and then went straight into college and then got into a nursing program.
Right.
And then
and so as an ER nurse, I mean, obviously you I bet you've seen a lot in your time. How did you kind of get into the decision to make a change to your career? I think it was fast forwarding to 2019. You made a bold decision to change your career path. And you left behind the stability of nursing and you ventured into the competitive world of photography. What inspired you to do that?
You know, I'm not quite sure what it was. I had been thinking about leaving nursing for like a few years. Mm-hmm. And it was December 2019 where I kind of out of the blue was just like, I'm gonna leave my job. So I called up my boss and I just said like, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna give in my 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks notice. And then my plan
Did they think you're crazy? Did they think you're crazy the minute you did that?
I don't know. I think I kind of had been like mentioning, it was like something that was, I don't know if I like mentioned it to my boss, but personally for me, I had been feeling it for a while. And by the time that I had quit, I wasn't in emergency room anymore. I had been like 2 or 3 years that I got out of it because the last job that I had was working in a hospital, called St. Luke's, so the Upper West Side, and that was a level 1 trauma ER. And so that was, if I'm truly honest, it was like really traumatic for me to have to like experience all that.
But where did this creative side of you come? I mean, like when you, I mean, it just seems so incompatible that, you translated over to photography. Did you always have a passion for it? Did it just come to you as a creative?
Well, so technically the first time I ever took photography was in high school. I can't remember if I was like 10th or 11th grade. Right. But I was into it then, just like, it was a class that I took, so I did the assignments. But it was really when I was in nursing school that I took an introduction to darkroom photography, and that was everything on film. We like processed and developed all of our film and then like printed our own images. And that's really like where I kind of fell in love with it. And so technically, I mean, I've been doing photography since like many, many, many years ago.
Did you know you were good? I mean, when you did that, did someone say, "My God, you're good"?
Well,
how did you know?
So the first all right. So the first semester here's the thing. I've only ever taken one actual photography class, like studied wise.
Right.
And that was the one that I did when I was in nursing. And I became really close with the professor. His name is Nick, and I think he still teaches there sometimes.
Right.
But anyways, so I would be like one of the only students that would stay the entire like 4 hours of a lab that we had. And It was just like this like meditative feeling or process that I had when I was in there. The time would just like fly by, and I was just like cranking out prints constantly. And I like loved printing on large paper and just like looking at it. And I'm like, okay, what's the next one I'm going to do? And so in one of those,
I have to ask you because you went the traditional path. Because I mean, I can relate to that because I studied photography at O level and A level, which is going back some years now. But the dark room and the feel for photography back then was so different. How did you? I mean, you obviously crossed over between traditional photography and modern digital photography. Was that problematic for you when you did?
No, I don't think it was, because I was shooting film, and then I have a friend who introduced me into Fuji cameras, which is just what I just strictly use now. And Fuji has this very like analog film style, like the camera itself feels like it's an analog camera. And so I think maybe that transition wasn't so difficult for me.
Right.
I think, the only advantage of digital is that you can see, I would say advantage and disadvantage to digital is that you're able to see what you're taking in the moment.
Yeah.
So, and I say disadvantage because you can easily get distracted by being able to just take tons of photos at once. Yeah. Versus with digital, you're like, you have to be a little bit more patient with it and like really think about what it is that you're trying to capture. And you have no idea what's going to come out, which is also kind of exciting, but also can be nerve-wracking if you have, you have to present it and have to give something
specific. It's got to be right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
tell me. I've got to ask you this question because I know a lot of people are thinking the same thing. You made that transition over. But there must have been a lot of people. I think you mentioned your mum put up a fight and said, no, you're not doing that. My mum did the same. It wasn't, photography wasn't really a profession. I'm sure it was. But at that time, the safer bet was, I don't know, being an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, safest route, right? And you crossed over. What did your friends and family say to you? I'm just intrigued.
Yeah. Well, in terms of my mom, it's more of like and I know that she wants me to have a sense of stability in my life.
Sure.
And I know that for her generation and past generations are, traditional jobs is where you make your money. And art is a thing that you have a talent for and will be difficult to make money in, essentially. And I guess in a sense it still is, but I feel like we're moving towards that being a change, or at least I think it is.
Yeah.
But when I did it, my family was supportive of it, and I had a partner at the time that was also very supportive of it. So I felt, when I decided to make that change. It felt right. It was like, okay, I have this, support, and
was the reality very different? People think that, going from, financially secure place like nursing, at least no nurse earns enough money, but, it's a financially secure path. And then, of course, you've gone into this situation that financially you didn't really know what was coming around the corner. Were you worried about it? Was it like when you did that, did any part of your brain say, listen, you need to take a deep breath and think again?
No, I didn't actually, because I this was, when I made this decision, this was like way before anybody knew that a pandemic was going to affect us for a few years. And so I guess my mindset at the time was, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it work. And I have support at the moment. And I guess I don't know what would have happened had the pandemic not occurred, because I think that definitely played into where I'm at right now, in a sense. Yeah.
Did you have an influencer, someone who you aspired? You mentioned your lecturer at university. The person who taught you how to do photography. Was he your influencer? Did you have someone that you aspired to being like? Did you see a photo from a magazine or something like that where you thought, you know what, I can do that?
It's a good question. So with my professor, my photography professor, Nick, he was always like super encouraging about my work. And he had, so going back to a previous question that you asked me about, like, how did I know if I was talented? I'm still not sure if I am. I'm going to be honest. But he had told me about this annual art gallery competition in Ithaca, and he was just like, submit some of your work. And I submitted one photograph that I took. It was a black and white image of a friend of mine that I took, and her arms are like crossed. It's from the back, so her arms are crossed behind her, like just touching her neck. And then there's just like this gradient of light, and then like it just fades into darkness. Wow. And it ended up being one of the 3 winners. Wow. So like my first like entry into anything photography related was that. And
because you're very, I get the impression we'll touch on this a bit later, but you're quite a humble person, really. I mean, you never, you're not really very showy, but your work speaks for itself. I mean, it's almost as if, you're not that kind of Instagram kind of influencer who pushes, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. It's really, your work speaks for itself. Let's wind the clock forward. COVID-19, you mentioned that, and it was a difficult time, and it forced a pause in your life's narrative. Before we delve into that period, could you share how your journey unfolded up until the pandemic?
Yeah, it was only a few months. So from December to, I can't remember when it was, things shut down, like March.
Around that time, I think it was. Yeah.
So, I left nursing just December 2019. And then I did a little bit of traveling. I went to the DR with my sister. Right. And then I took a trip to Florida with my friend. And then around the time that I was in Florida was when things started being, like when we started hearing about COVID being in New York, in Florida, and all these different states. And then by the time that I got back, that's when things started everything started shutting down.
Sure.
And so
the pandemic did affect your kind of outlook at that time. In November 2021, you received that life-changing email, which I read about. And it really is it's an event that you probably look back on today as a significant sign that you were good at what you did and how you did it. Can you describe that moment, that life-changing moment when you received that email? Because it did create an alternative future.
Yeah, it did. You're totally right. I remember getting the email and just like reading it and then thinking like, this is a scam. I was like, one, because it wasn't a photo editor I had reached out to. And two, it was just a huge assignment for someone who like not even being known in the photography world to receive. And it was really exciting, and I wrote back, and then I was just sitting at my computer being like, when are they going to reply back? And then obviously that's, a little bit of my insecurity came out there.
Sure.
And
but you must have been overwhelmed. You must have been like, my God, you at that particular moment, you must have known you're really good at what you do.
Like I've said, it's a hard thing for me to admit right now. I think that I do what I do and the way that I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. It's just like how I see it and how I view things.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt you're creative. Yeah. You've got this kind of like a very unique style. I can't explain it, but I think at the end of this podcast, I'm going to put the your Instagram details so people can actually view what we're talking about now. It's kind of like a signature, photography style that really I've only seen with you. It's a unique take. Yeah, it really is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about 2024. And it's more than halfway spent. What happened between that life-changing event and today?
So, I would say probably the biggest thing was I got to photograph our Vice President Kamala Harris.
Which I just could not believe when I saw on Instagram. I thought, I'm being scammed. It's not real, but it is real. And scrolling through you, I mean, tell me about that moment. You must have been like, what's going on here? I'm just suddenly, what happened?
That was, that came, so basically my entire career as a photographer has been me just constantly reaching out to photo editors and making connections and like really hoping that someone gives me an opportunity. And that, like that first one that you said when in November of 2021 that I got where I photographed for the New York Times Magazine, that really was, the point that got me to where I currently am right now. Yeah. And so,
I mean,
every assignment that
Sorry, there's a bit of a time lag there. Don't worry. Carry on. You were saying that. I can't even imagine you. Do you position the people that you're doing the photograph with? I mean, did you say to Kamala Harris, could you turn slightly that way, or let's get some more light? I mean, did you give instruction? I mean, you actually, did you? How much interaction did you get, or was it just click? Oh, that's your dog. Don't worry. He wants to answer.
He's like, I got it. I know what to say.
That's fine.
I was there. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, don't worry.
So what did? Yeah.
So take it.
Yeah.
I was just saying about giving instruction. Yeah.
So the way that I photograph is I keep everything simple. That entire setup was one light. The backdrop is a backdrop that I painted. And when I met her, she was really kind. She had obviously like this massive team with her, Secret Service and everything. And so, I shook her hand, and I was just like, all right, let's take some photos. And I did direct her like I do with everybody. And there was this one time that I was like, how about you put your hands in your, in your pockets? And her team was just like, no, no way. And I was like, all right, okay, let's not do that. So obviously they have, they want to portray her in a certain way.
In a certain light.
And and I also want to photograph her in a way that I see her. So
I think you didn't make a compromise to your style. There's still a significant, I think it's still very much you. And if I saw that picture today anywhere, I'd know you took it. So how did that wash with the end result? Did they say no, you can't do this? Because the background was amazingly sort of put into the background, and she sort of stood away from it. It was a really nice take. It drew out the colours quite naturally, and she seemed so relaxed and so natural. but it's not the usual style of photography. Did they accept it, or did they want it changed?
Oh no, they were totally fine. You mean, did the New York Times accept it, or her team accept it?
Both, really.
Both. Yeah, no, it was they both did, and I shoot tethered, so people can see like what I'm getting. Or like, what's being captured.
Sure.
And so during the same time that I photographed her during last year's, in November, it was the New York Times Book Deal Summit, or Deal Book Summit, Book Summit. And I got to photograph a lot of other people during that time as well.
I'm going to name drop. Shall I name drop for you?
Do it.
Well, I picked up that you'd actually taken a picture of Elon Musk, which was, another big celebrity name. And again, your trademark signature type of photo, which seems to be growing in popularity. Now, I know that I know today when we put out the advert that you're coming on the show, so many photographers are interacting with the post. And I guess there are a lot of photographers thinking, how can I get to where you are? What advice have you got for somebody who's new, looking at you now, whether you like it or not, you're an influencer, and thinking, you know what, I'm bored of my regular 9 to 5 and I want to do what Carly did.
What would be my advice? So I'll tell you what I did. I figured out what my style was.
Right.
And in doing that, it just makes it that much easier for me to create. So I'm not trying to like be something else. It's
right.
like I go for dark and moody, shadows, highlights, lights. It's the thing that I'm constantly drawn to.
Yeah.
And even, when I'm out and about, I'll have my phone with me, and if it's a flower or like a leaf on the ground and the light's hitting it just right, and I just am drawn to it, I always photograph it. And I think if you were to look at that work that I do, that's not portraiture. It's exactly like how I how I take photographs of people. Yeah. And so I would say like my main thing is how I'm drawn to light, and how it just like creates this like.
You are a true creative,
interesting backdrop on its own. Yeah. I love it.
Okay, I have a question for you now, because I want to take some of these myths into consideration, because in your industry, these myths are important, because there is a belief that social media and image filtering have diluted the art of photography, and it's just simply not what it used to be. Do you agree with that? I mean, you just mentioned you've got your phone. Is it as good as a camera? Can you make it work just like a camera?
Yeah, I think you definitely can. I don't know. I still have this, this kind of feeling that it took me a really long time for me to admit to people that I'm a photographer. If I meet somebody new and they're like, what do you do? Yeah. It took me a really long time for me to just say like, I'm a photographer.
Wow.
And mainly that comes because I didn't study photography like I studied nursing. Like I don't have a degree in photography, but I think of artists from our past who created works of art that we still appreciate now and are influenced by, and they maybe didn't necessarily study it, and it's just like this creative
I get
outlet that they have.
I get that.
So I think whatever it is that you have accessible, that you can use to capture anything, then like go for it. Like I said, I use my phone and I edit on my phone. Like if I, all the photos that I take on my phone, I edit directly from there. And it's a huge advantage to have. Many years ago, we didn't have like the quality of
that's right.
Photos that we have on our phone. So it's also this like advantage, disadvantage kind of thing. I would say mainly just figuring out what it is that you're drawn to, like what it is that you're constantly like gravitating towards.
And stick to it.
and stick to it. And when I first started reaching out to photo editors, one thing I'm grateful that I didn't do was, go
compromise.
Right. I was just like, this is what I like to photograph, and I don't want to, I can photograph like this like airy light photo where it's like really bright, but that's not what I want to do.
Well, let's talk about another myth, because there's a perception that photographers are losing their creative freedom because of client demands. They want more light. They don't like the shading. I think we touched on that with your photograph with the vice president, because, you did say, look, perhaps sit this way, or you're going to light it this way. But have clients' demands changed so much that your kind of creative integrity has been impacted in some way?
I would say luckily not so much.
Right.
I hope that people come to me with the understanding of this is the work that I do. Like I would, think that people look at my work and they're like, oh, let me contact this photographer to do this work.
Yeah.
And I think also in the fact that I have a specific style that I do, it can be limited to the kinds of jobs that I get. But I'm also, I have the mindset of like, I don't know, like let's venture outside of the box and do something that's different and not the same. And so far, I would say it's kind of been working.
Well, no, I would say it's been working. I mean, you're at the very pinnacle, really. I mean, these are big names you've been involved with. Yeah. Look, I believe you intentionally made a strategic pact with destiny. I mean, did all paths lead to this point for you? And by that, I mean that there is an element of fate. I mean, do you ever look back and go, you know what? I couldn't make this up. It was fate.
Maybe. I would say that if I look back, everything felt intuitive.
Yeah.
Like me deciding to leave nursing when I did, it was just a feeling.
Timing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, feeling and timing. And even when I photograph, like I also just, I photograph from an intuitive, like place. If how do I explain it? Like, with the photographs that I did where the vice president was there, I had only one single backdrop, one single color, one light, because I like to keep it simple. And every single person that I photographed, like it fit, like whatever they were wearing, just like fit with the backdrop, the lighting, everything was just like, it just worked out. And if I think about it,
it all works out. It all works.
It just feels like it just works out.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I can see that with your work on Instagram. It's out there. And as I say, people who don't know you or don't know your style can go to Instagram and have a good look around, because there's some enormous names there, big brands. Well, look, does the brand Carly Zavala have more to achieve, both professionally and personally? You've done and achieved so much. You're at the very height of your game. What does the future look like for you and your brand?
Yeah. I just want to, I want to continue doing what I'm doing right now. I would like, obviously there is this sense of instability with jobs and being a freelancer. Sure. I think a lot of my fellow freelance photographers can agree with that. That's kind of the hard.
Sure. Goes with the badge, right? Goes with the badge. Yeah.
But I want to continue doing the work that I do and evolve, and whatever's coming down the line, and just I don't know, just do more work. It's interesting to me every time I do a photograph. I'm like, what else can I do? Or like what other like what else can I create? And it's just this like interesting feeling to have that I can constantly just create things differently, but still, in my style. And that's pretty exciting, actually.
Amazing. Well, look, Carly Zavala, it's been great to have you on the show. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me today, all the way from Brooklyn. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Thank you to the audience for tuning into the show. I'll include Carly's Instagram ID in the podcast description box. Please remember to like, share, and comment. Until next time, bye for now.